Hey there, Trevor. I apologize for the audio quality on this. I couldn't get my microphone to connect, so I apologize if it's hard to understand. So, to your question about problem 8.35, here's the basic setup here. The hypothesis you're testing is guilt. The evidence you're interested in is that the person did confess. And then here's Bayes' rule in odds form right here. Okay, so the question says use the rule in odds form to verify the confession only adds to evidence of guilt if the confession is more likely to come from guilty than from innocent. So let's just see if we can process that. So this ratio right here, you have no control over right now. These are just prior probabilities of guilt or innocence. And I suppose from the police's perspective, that's a 50-50 shot maybe. So it might be like that. It's a toss-up for them, maybe. Who knows? We don't have any control over that. What this problem is asking you to think about is this fraction here. So let's just process something like this. Probability of E given H. So assuming the person is guilty, what's the probability they would confess? And what's that relationship to this? Assuming the person's not guilty, what's the probability they confess? So the problem says, blah, 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 if the confession is more likely to come from the guilty than from the innocent. So let's process that. If the confession is more likely to come from guilty than innocent, then what will we have? We would have this. We're more likely to see that evidence if the person's guilty than if they're not guilty. And so if this is true right here, then up here you have the top of the fraction is bigger than the bottom of the fraction. And what is that doing? So way over here, this is the ratio you care about. If this is bigger than this, then you're adding more weight to the numerator than to the denominator. Got a parenthesis there. So all that it's really saying is, hey, if you're more likely to see this kind of evidence from guilty people than innocent people, then you're adding more weight up here and then adding more weight up there. So you're increasing the odds of their guilt. Only if you're more likely to see confessions from guilty people than innocent people. So the question is kind of confusingly worded, but it really just wants you to write this out and then acknowledge the problem gives you no control over this. This is just like, okay, like this classic guy, like, yeah, I can't draw very well. Anyway, classic shrug guy there. You can't control that. It's asking you to think about the relationship of top to bottom here. So let me know if that doesn't make sense. Now, to your other question, here's what you sent me in the email. You have the right idea, of course, because this is what we did in class. There are two slight issues with what you did. The first is that this 8 and this 4 are correct because you had 8 successes and 4 failures. So of the 12 people, 8 of them succeeded. However, the 8 and 4 are not reflected here. Right? You're saying from 10 people, I got 7 successes. So you'll have to change that like this. So there's your first issue. You just need to adjust that for the new data you have. Now your other issue is that, so in class we were thinking about, is this drug like more effective than the previous one? So in this numerator we had a sum that worked like this because what would more effective mean? If the old drug was 66% effective, then more effective would mean going from 67 all the way up to 100. But notice in this question, it's actually asking you something more specific. Sorry, I have it here somewhere. I lost it on my screen. Okay. Yeah, so the problem asks, hey, what's the probability the success rate is precisely 67%? Not 67% or more, but precisely 67%. So that means you can't go to 68, 69, and so on. So if you want to keep your summation structure intact, you can do it. Whoop. But you got to put a 67 up here. So that's the difference. That question sort of zooming in on the single success rate, not asking about 67 or higher. So it's actually a more specific, more zoomed in question than what we did in class. So if you make those two adjustments, you should get something much closer to the answer on the PDF. Okay, so let me know if that doesn't help. We can always meet over Zoom if you want, or we can always email back and forth. Just let me know if this doesn't clear things up for you.